what a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. Now, we are joined by Chocolate Saying, 10th Man, Paul Hall. Oh no, where's Chocolate Saying? He's normally here by now. And we're also joined by a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, hello. Any signs of a physical sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Not from Kings Canyon National Park.
I'm driving over a hill that looks like it's curved. Does that count?
No. We'd need
Just checking, but it looks curved.
We'd need
the cars are going over the horizon, so to speak.
The curve of what you're looking at is going into the horizon. Now, it's the horizon itself that needs to be a physical geometric sphere edge. You know, the thing they say that bends at altitude, like the one I've got on screen now. That's the sphere edge, so physical sphere edge horizon, right? The thing they say boats are going over. Boats are going over.
Yeah, you would have to have one if you live on a ball, right?
Yeah, you absolutely require a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon if you're on a sphere Earth, based on an R value, 3959 miles. I mean, they had one. They used to assert that boats were going over this physical geometric sphere edge horizon until we debunked it with the Black Swan argument.
You know, for 2.5 years, Nathan, I had a boat, and I'd go on it on a weekly basis, and I never saw or felt that I went over a curve of any kind.
Because you didn't. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Coriolis effect would be what I'm looking for here. They claim proof with Coriolis effect. Feel free to pipe up anybody in Discord.
I would say I think the egg.
Go on, Paul.
Oh, I was say I think the egg demonstration. I think the egg demonstration stops. The illustration that it's spinning, because a molten core would not spin continuously.
Well, is there any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, Paul?
No.
What about the presupposition itself? What about the R value, Earth radius? Any evidence of that? Hello, Arwin.
Hello.
Arwin is ace. Go and check out Flat Earth Early Bird. Starts an hour before the debate every day. Be here or be sphere. ARWIJN. Check it out.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, but have you got any evidence of the R value? Arwin.
Yeah, despite my name and the way it's pronounced in English, yeah, there is no R. So, yeah, it's kind of weird.
What about the distance?
R would definitely win if
R
you
would win
it.
if we had one. What about the distance to the sun?
It's over there. But yeah, no distance. No, there's just angular positions.
With presupposed sphere lights in the sky based on our R value. Venus was discussed in the pre-show. We won't rehash that conversation right now. Check out the pre-show. It'll come out tomorrow on the Nathan Oakley channel if you're watching this live.
And if the atmosphere is refracting the horizon, it's also refracting the sun in its position, wouldn't it?
sun doesn't have an actual position in their rhetoric. I don't have the slightest clue what the sun is, but in their positional data, it's not actual. It's an apparent position. Refracted. Correct.
Mhm.
Pretty useless if you're going to start making assertions about things it's useful for proving. Nevertheless, any scientific evidence of gravity?
I'm still stuck on the R win. R win. There are loses.
Okay.
Don't give up
Right,
your day job.
Arwen? Don't give up your day job. That's why I retired early.
Yeah, R would win, but only if there's proof for it.
They need
So-
an R win right now. That's what they need. An R win.
They need R win.
They need me. I know.
An R win. Not the R win.
I thought you told me to quit my day job and you take over my punt.
They need an R value win. Because they've just had an R value loss in the form of a black swan. Any
I've
scientific
been
evidence?
vindicated.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
None whatsoever.
Nope.
Yeah, weight cannot contain the water in the glass. Sorry.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, too many light years away.
Light years is based on Kepler's third law, though, isn't it?
The concept of light years itself is already very presuppositional.
Yes, it is.
Again, we discussed the astronomical unit and Kepler's third law in the pre-show. Let's just move on. So no single viable hypothesis from any of these fields, astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? No?
No.
Well, let's not move past light too quick, because if the quantum eraser experiment's correct, then light could be instantaneous. So what's light speed? Or
Good question.
light year, what is that?
Very good question.
A light year is supposedly the time it would take for light to travel at the light speed, the supposed speed of light, right?
Wow, way to
That's
beg the question.
how long it is. Like for light to travel at light speed for over a year, that distance of measure. That's how it's.
What,
how
like,
that
a,
Yeah.
is
like
envisioned.
an astronomical
But I
unit.
guess but you missed the point. I was like, if the quantum eraser experiment's correct, that light is instantaneous from the source to the eye of the observer. So what is a light year?
Not instantaneous. That's kind of erroneous. It doesn't have a journey, but if it has a point that you can observe it between the point that it's fired and the point that it impacts the photographic plate or sensor, then it has a duration that can be qualified based on starting point, point A, the slit, and point B, the target. Well, you can also say that it doesn't have any duration of time at all. I prefer to repackage that as it doesn't have any journey. It's a very interesting point you've got there, Paul. I like that one a lot, and it leaves you with a lot of questions. The same questions, believe it or not, being asked by the people who perform the double slit or quantum eraser experiments. So yeah, very well said, Paul.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Owen's just twigged. Yeah. Maybe another time.
But my
Owen.
original assertion that light is an instantaneous is that true after all?
It's not
Because I did see
it's
like
not
an
true.
empirical piece that actually kind of did convince me that light does have an effective speed from a start to arrival, as it were.
Like I'll rephrase how I package this up. It doesn't have a journey. It doesn't have a path at all, from what I can establish. You can observe, although you can observe it on its way. How contradictory is that?
What's the Heisenberg
That just
uncertainty
sounds
principle?
nonsensical to me.
Let Paul speak. Say that again, Paul. Has Heisenberg's uncertainty principle?
I say if you try to know its location, you can't know its speed. If you know its speed, you can't know its location.
Booyah!
Right?
Booyah! Right. Isn't that something that Quantum Eraser asks people to debunk if they're going to come at him with any assertions about light? I believe it is.
But Hold on,
Debunk.
that has nothing to do with it.
Let's not get into this. I'm not educated enough to have my ground on this. I'm towing a very fine tightrope right
hold
now,
on.
Armin. So
It's about the exact information, the position or the speed thing. But if it has a speed that, we're not asking the exact position of a supposed light particle, because I don't really presuppose that in the first place. But it has a speed because there is a start to arrival differential that can be detected. So the side issue that you can't know the exact position and the speed at the same time has nothing to do with that, really.
that's the uncertainty principle. If you maybe look into the photoelectric effect, because you from memory, unless I'm just imagining this, didn't you quite get into Einstein at one stage, looking at the general really. I'll get there in the end. The general theory of
relativity.
You took the words out of my mouth after I stuttered over it 3 times. Thank you for that, Armin. Indeed. But, if you look at the photoelectric effect, that might be more of interest to you. It's another one of the, I'll put it on a slab. You've got to debunk the photoelectric effect if you're going to discuss this with me. Like I say, I'm towing a very fine line here because I don't know a great deal about this. But I know enough to nod politely at Paul and go, yeah, good point, mate.
All right.
Just one more housekeeping question. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Nope. I can't demonstrate it.
Any fundamentalist religious zealots in the chat that think the sky is a vacuum?
Lots of them. But they think it's weight. They think that all the gas expands in all directions unless it seems there's too much space, and then they suddenly turn back and start weighing on the gas beneath them.
Gradient.
Gradient.
Can you demonstrate where weight, which is their new rhetoric now, can contain a gas?
Yeah, entropy's a bitch. We've gone over this many times.
It would seem like every time we come to the subject, they are of the mindset that if the antecedent to gas pressure is a container, then that gas pressure has to be equal in all places in that container. And you've done a very good job with the panel of going back and forth about where the gases start from. And there are different types of gases. And you can have a gradient of gas, but you can't have pressure of any type without containment. And they're just not able to see that.
How can you have
There's
a
actually-
gradient in a container?
It's been demonstrated you can have that. But wait a minute, before we go there, let me talk about something. They always get on to us because we ask them to demonstrate how you can have gas pressure around a ball in a vacuum. And they say there's a scale issue, right? Because you have to scale it up. It has to be large. Well, the other side is also true because, you could say a small container like a paint can that is under pressure, there's necessarily no gradient, but that's a small scale. Well, if you scale it up to as large as this place we live in, you could have a dynamic system with pressure variations throughout it because it's a very large system.
Or you could just get a very long pipe and pump some butane into the bottom. And you can see that you've got a higher pressure at the lower end of the pipe than you have at the top end of the pipe. Or to put it another way, a pressure gradient.
Over time, it's going to equalize.
That's correct. That's called entropy.
Right. So where is the gradient in the container of Earth? How can that work then?
We've got a dynamic system. So gas is produced at ground level in its highest concentrations. It dissipates as it goes up because it's not being produced in the middle of the sky. It's only produced at ground level, so that's where the highest concentration is. Many of them have got
Did he not hear what I just said? I don't know. Just wondering.
I didn't hear what you said. My bad. I interrupted you in the middle of my sentence. Go ahead, Paul.
Something about a paint can. Something about a paint can.
That's small scale. A paint can is small scale, right? Or any kind of container. So if you look at things at a large scale, then you can have a dynamic system. That was my point, because that's their argument the other way. We say, well, demonstrate pressure around a ball in a vacuum, and they say, well, that's too small scale. So the sword cuts both ways in this argument. That's my point.
It doesn't have to be big, though.
Can't
So,
say.
Hold on.
Paul-
It doesn't. Hold on. It doesn't have to be big. So there's a dude that does scam baiting along with loads of other obscure stuff. Makes. Let's not get into what he does. One of the things he does is creates like ecosystems in a sealed jar. They'll just go to a pond, get a load of water, stick a cap on a jar, and watch it create its own atmosphere, its own little density, pressure gradients, the full shebango, right? A full ecosystem in a jar. People have been running bottle gardens in the same way for ages, where it's a sealed jar and the thing just self-contained, self-sustains rather. It just creates all of the cycles within the jar on a very, very small scale. Well, you can measure pressure gradients between the base of the jar, where all of the moss and all the stuff that's creating the gases is got the highest concentration. Sometimes you can see it. You can see a little mist at the bottom of the jar, and then at the top, obviously, there's less. I mean, that's just how an ecosystem works. We were taught this in school with the gas cycles. We've got cycles, right? So they go up as gas, they come back down as water in the case of the water cycle. Well, that means there's less as you go higher. That's a gradient. But that's a delta.
Right, but it's in the container.
Hold on. That's a delta of gas pressure. In other words, if you don't have a container to begin with, you can't achieve any of the above, small or large scale. You need a container to achieve gas pressure, and therefore achieve gas pressure gradient as a delta. So the question we ask is, how can you have gas pressure at all if we're in a sky vacuum? It's claimed that the heliocentric model's in a vacuum. So we wouldn't have any gas pressure to form a gradient in the first place.
He just answered the question. He says, but that's in the container.
Yeah, it must
but
be contained.
Indeed, it's in the container. So how can it be a near vacuum at the top and have all this gas pressure we have here below? How can it be in a container?
It can't.
That's much of a difference.
Yeah, it can't. You're right. It can't be. It can't have a high pressure next to a vacuum. That's not possible. The gas would fill the space.
No. I'm not saying next to a vacuum. I'm saying if you go way up in the sky, it's almost a vacuum. That's how little of amount of air there is in the sky. So how can there be such a big difference between almost a vacuum up high and all this gas pressure below?
It's not almost a vacuum up high. What are you talking about? Just lower pressure in reality.
Oh, so there's not a gradient in the sky if you go up?
It gets lower and lower and lower, but this near vacuum...
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
That's not near vacuum.
Yeah, your words mean something.
Then what's the limit?
I don't know. But the point is, it's claimed the sky is a vacuum.
You don't know what the limit is of the gradient.
Yeah, but I don't know what the limit of the gradient is, but to have the gradient at all, we must be contained.
No, but don't you think that's interesting? You're saying it's not near vacuum, but you don't know what the limit is? How can it be? How can you make those two statements?
It's lower pressure.
It's lower.
He answered it. Look, I'll give you an example. On property, I have to buy my own propane gas. The tank is 500 gallons. They never fill it up full. Only 80%. When you ask the guy, why only 80%? I know the answer. I think you know the answer.
Yeah,
why don't you give it a try?
Safe.
Give it a try. Why 80%? Why not a full tank of gas?
For safety purposes.
Why?
I said it 3 times, for safety purposes.
Right, but why? What happens to gas in the container if it's full and the sun is hot?
Oh, that's what.
Yeah.
Right. The
It
thing
expands.
Can explode,
it expands.
So what?
It expands. The heat will affect the pressure of the gas. So if you've only got 1 or 2% left for the gas vapor to fill, and you heat it up, then it's got a very small space. So you're going to get very high pressure.
Yeah, but you're stepping over my question. I asked you, how can you say it's not a near vacuum if you go up high, but you also don't know what the limit of the gradient is?
Because near vacuum, this is an arbitrary term, meaningless. It's asserted the sky is a vacuum, the most powerful vacuum you can achieve, far more powerful than we can ever achieve here on Earth with 8-foot thick concrete walls and steel doors. We can't achieve anything like the claimed vacuum of the sky. Now that is the predominant Western world religious view about their sky, that it's a vacuum, 10 to the minus 17 torr, called outer space. Now if that was the case, we wouldn't have any gas to breathe. Now, us arguing about what could or couldn't be the lowest point of the pressure before it hits any containment is not for me to argue about because I'm not a sky expert. However, I know beyond all doubt that the sky is not a vacuum 10 to the minus 17 torr as asserted by the heliocentric spinning ball space monkey religion vacuum sky believing idiots. Because we haven't got a sky vacuum 10 to the minus 17 torr, the gas we breathe would fill the space. That's the end of the argument. Who cares beyond that, beyond a folly of interest? Well, how low does it get before it starts bouncing off something? I don't know. I know it's not a vacuum.
No, I didn't ask about a vacuum. I said if the gradient is near vacuum. But you're saying that's not possible, but you also don't know the limit of the gradient. That seems a bit dishonest.
What's the point of this line of questioning, exactly? Sorry, am I suddenly going to be the arbiter of what the sky does and what the pressure gradients are achieving inside their containment? Are we all in agreement then that to achieve any of these questions, first we must have containment to be able to argue about this? We're all in agreement there, because that's the point of the conversation. A folly about what the pressure gradients may or may not achieve as you go higher is not for me to concern myself with, because it's not something I can achieve. However, I know beyond all doubt that we must have containment. Are we all in this agreement that we must have containment to be arguing about this at all?
I'm granting you the container argument for the sake of argument, and I'm asking, how do you know it's not a near vacuum at the top of the gradient?
I see. You're granting us the container argument. The heliocentric world doesn't have a container. That was your turn. I've finished. Sure. Yeah, you finished, and thank you. You understand we must have containment. That's interesting you should say that, because 95% of the Western world believe that we're in an open system with a sky that is a vacuum. So while it might be fascinating beyond this point to now discuss the folly of what the gas pressures might be doing in our absolutely must-be contained system, that debunks the sky vacuum, which is called outer space. So space debunked by your concession then. Who cares about what the gas pressure gradient's doing? You can see... Why are you talking? Mate, asshole. Talking, mate. Yeah. What I'm doing is teabagging your religion, but that means that you've got to talk through me, does it? No, shut up. Yeah, so sky vacuum debunked, outer space fake, not real. A pretty integral part of the religion that we're on a ball flying through a sky vacuum, my friend. 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum named outer space. Yeah, so what's this concession that we must be contained? Yeah, that's the end of your religious worldview that the sky is a vacuum with rocks flying around in it, in these presupposed orbits. End of heliocentric religion in that regard then, mate. Not just a minor concession on a debate show. The end of your bloody religious worldview.
No, I was asking how we can have this gradient in the container.
Oh, that's really interesting when we've debunked the entire nature of reality in form of a sky vacuum called outer space. That is the basis of your paradigm. That is 99.9999999% of everything in your world. The vacuum of space, called outer space, it's the basis of the entire religion. Everything's taking place in outer space. If we've got a container, everything they've said about what rockets do when they go out into deep space to investigate what's what about our bloody heavens, that's all lies. Because we must have containment. So who gives a crap about debating about what the gradient might be doing? To have the gradient, we've got to be contained. And the 95% of the Western world that are under the impression that you can have rockets travelling to a fake place called space, yeah, that's far more important, mate.
May I interject something that he said that I caught? Hey, you said you're going to grant a container, which is what the point's been. That Nathan clearly said that you said that, and we all heard you say it. Then you followed that by saying, how do you explain the gradient? Well, you can't have a gradient without a container.
So I'm asking how the gradient is possible inside the container.
We just answered that like 5 times. Are you deaf?
So it's circle jerk asshole time. At the beginning of the show, we're talking about how Rumpus won't give us a concession. Now, this guy has given us a concession, but still thinks it's necessary to go back to his circle jerk point at the beginning of this, even though we've explained it with gas cycles and bottle gardens and gas being formed at ground level and dissipating as it goes up. All that's been ignored. Either he's dumb, deaf, or stupid, or thinks that by obfuscation he can now go back to the original point, ignoring the fact that we've debunked the 99.9999999 recurring amount of his world that he thinks he lives in. He is a tiny speck of dust in a sky vacuum.
The gas pressure equalizes in the container.
No, it doesn't. You can form a gas pressure gradient because gas is formed at ground level and gets less as it goes up. So he is going to ignore everything we've said, hoping that we can now argue about this and not realise that his religion's dead.
I've been noticing that a lot lately.
The religion's dead.
The gradient? Is it going to argue that how is it possible if we have whatever's closing us in, we would be filled up and it would cause a greenhouse effect?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm asking how can there be a gradient if the gas is going to equalize the pressure over time? Even if in the butane gas example.
Who cares? We've debunked outer space and you're concerned about the physics of containment. We've got containment then, so space is fake then. So who cares beyond that? It's totally moot.
Agreed.
No, it's actually an important...
Oh, well, sod off and go and figure it out then. Now that you know we're contained and space is fake, don't acknowledge the important detail that space is fake. Let's worry about whether or not we've got, I don't know, what the Tor value at 200,000 feet might be a bit less than it was at 100. Oh, that's truly fascinating. Meanwhile, space is fake.
He doesn't know what he even said.
Why doesn't this guy just go to a hardware store and buy a can of something? Anything. Like, is this guy kidding?
No, Chocolate. Well, he came in and he says he'll...
No, I'm actually asking serious questions about your model. Why is that?
It's time for a straw man. We don't have a model. What model? We don't assert the sky is a vacuum. I've said I don't know. But you're qualifying a model that I haven't asserted as a straw man that you're going to burn? How dare you? I don't assert a model. I said I don't know what the sky is. I said it's unimportant beyond the assertion that 95% of the Western world are under, that it's a bloody vacuum called outer space. As soon as you debunk that, all bets are off, mate. What, question my model that I haven't got? You mean question something to argue about because your sky vacuum's dead? So it's more important to now quiz me because I'm suddenly the arbiter of what the sky is, because I've taken a dump on the assertion that it's outer space. It isn't. So suddenly I've got to justify what it is. No, I don't. No, I've proved it's not a vacuum. You've conceded we must be contained to have any gas pressure to argue about gradients all day long. So space is fake. So beyond that, I'm not going to argue about what it could be. Yeah, that's outrageous. That's what they've done. They've told us what it is and lied. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to just make it up like they did. How dare you ask me to prove a model I haven't asserted? I haven't got one.
Right, so I'm just asking questions about your ID.
Oh, right, go and ask someone else. Go and ask the people who lied to you about what the sky was. The people who say it's a sky vacuum. Go and ask them. Not the messenger who points out that they've lied to you, and you were too stupid to realise that they'd lied to you. Just because I can note a lie doesn't mean I'm suddenly the arbiter of the sky, that I need questioning about the sky because I've pointed out where someone's lied to the world. Yeah, we've been lied to about what the sky is. It's not space. Yeah, the Americans with their new flag, with their new space agency, that's all lies. Total lies. But because I'm pointing out that they're lying to you, I've suddenly got to tell you what it is. No, mate, no obligation whatsoever to do that. Go and ask someone who's lied to you, maybe.
There is a valid point.
Right, so I can't...
Go on, Anthony.
This guy is fine.
You could go to Arwin's show, The Early Bird, and where you could discuss all the ideas that you may or may not have. Because Arwin's got some interesting perspectives of what the sky might be. But this really isn't the show for you. We don't know what the sky is. We don't even know what the sun is.
I don't even know if he's really that interested. Or if he's,
right now?
I don't know if he's even that interested. By the way, welcome back, Tony.
How you been, brother?
I think Ed is just being very, annoying, trollish, because he just doesn't want the Earth to be
Arwin, I'm
flat.
just asking questions about the flat Earth on a show about flat Earth. Why is that weird?
You're not asking about flat
No,
Earth. You're
because-
asking about the sky.
Oh, God.
Sorry, the sky that you're asking about. Now, your sky in your paradigm of a sphere world is a vacuum 10 to the minus 17 torr called outer space. We've debunked that by concession. You've told us. No, we need containment. I concede you need containment. Oh, right, yeah, we definitely need containment. It's an antecedent based on natural law and gas law. So, yeah, we know that. And there's a lie out there that it's a vacuum. Now, we're not lying to you and telling you the nonsense stories about what the sky could be. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, I said for the sake of argument, I didn't concede anything.
You did. Yeah, you conceded that we need containment. That's a necessary antecedent for the gas pressure we have. It's irrelevant whether or not you understand it. Your concession is based on natural law. So not much of a concession, mate. We don't need you to concede. By way of natural law, without the container, there can be no pressure.
Right, so you didn't answer my...
So it's not critical that we get your concession. It's just fun for the show, for the sake of argument. Sake of argument, you have conceded we need containment. We can prove that by way of natural law, so your concession's kind of irrelevant beyond the entertainment of a fundy zealot who doesn't realise his sky vacuum's fake, and therefore out of space, where all the rockets go's fake. Yeah, but you think it's important to argue about what the flat Earth might be, when we're not the arbiters and liars about space agencies and millions of dollars being spent on the sky vacuum exploration of a place that isn't real. We're not making up any of this crap, nor will we do so just because you demand that we now do so, because we've pointed out a lie to you. A lie of the sky vacuum. That doesn't mean we're suddenly the arbiters of what the sky actually is. We're just good at pointing out lies. Lies from people who've got space agencies. One was unveiled only days ago, with Trump sat next to a little flag, and the only thing real about that agency is the bloody flag and the people holding it. Because the sky's not a vacuum, they're not going anywhere.
Right, so why can't I
guy-
ask questions about
If I'm-
it then?
Is this guy?
It's
He
so
wants to
weird.
know
You're
the
telling me
cause
I
of the
don't know anything,
gradient.
but when I
It's
ask
relative-
questions,
It's
you're
density.
shouting at
Density
me.
is the cause of the gradient. There you go. Because there is
It's-
relative density happening, the disequilibrium that happens when a material of a certain density that is a different density than the medium that surrounds it. Yeah, that causes displacement, and this happening also
Is
known
this
as
guy-
relative
is
density,
this-
Can I ask the
causes
question?
a gradient.
I'm
That's
trying to
it.
get a question. Yeah.
That's it. That's the answer.
Is this guy's name Ed?
Yes.
Okay, Ed, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Because
what's
you're
up?
just going in a circle here. Please explain to us what natural law is in your best effort. What is a natural law?
I don't see the point of that. I'm just asking questions about flat
I'm just
Earth.
asking. I
On
don't
a
care
flat-
if
So
you-
he doesn't
hang
see
on,
the
I
point
don't
of
care
our
if you see
questioning
the point
him.
or
He's
not.
here to insist we tell him what the sky vacuum is after we debunk the assertion that it's a vacuum, 10 to the minus 17 torr, called out of space. Yeah, he's not interested in that, but he's interested in what? Just putting questions to us about a model we haven't asserted? No, that's outrageous.
Well, my point, Ed, is this: that if you're going to form an argument and it goes against natural law, your argument loses right away. So, explain to me what natural law is.
Explain to me why you're shouting at me and telling me I don't know anything. But when I ask questions about the things I supposedly don't know anything about, you're not answering anything. You keep shouting. What's the point of this show then?
So you're asking us about
The
how
question is
much...
gas pressure without a container. Can you
it's beyond moot. I've already explained this to you, Ed. Do you want me to break it down again slightly slower? I've already answered this. It's moot. There's a positive assertion about what the sky is. We are not making a positive assertion about what the sky is, Ed. However, by implication and natural law, it cannot be what 95% of the Western world think it is. Because 95% of the Western world think the sky is an outer space vacuum. It isn't. Therefore, we debunk the only claim on the table about what the sky is. Now, I'm not making any claims about anything beyond the absolutely required containment, because it's an antecedent for the gas pressure, the consequent. So therefore, we can't have gas pressure without containment, and you've conceded this. So beyond this point, we've debunked the only positive assertion on the table, and you're saying, well, I've got questions that need answering. Yes, so have we, Ed. Join the club. It's amazing once you find out you've been lied to about what outer space was, the sky. Suddenly you've got a load of questions. Yes, so have we. Are you going to suddenly answer our question? You know what, Ed? Now that you know we must be contained, what's the gradient up there? How low does it go? Tell us immediately. Because you know it must be contained like we know. Therefore, you answer these questions about what the gradient dissipates to. Obviously, it's not a vacuum. You understand we must have containment. But you, like I suddenly am, are the arbiter of what the sky is now, Ed. So you tell us these things. Don't bullshit and make something up, I might add. Give us it with facts and measurements that you've acquired. Because that's reasonable that I demand this of you, isn't it, Ed? Now that you understand we must have containment, it's reasonable that I demand you give me answers to what the sky is. That's reasonable, right, Ed? You give them me now.
I didn't say anything about containment.
No, you asked me, though, didn't you, shit for brains? You're asking me what the sky is, and when I reverse the burden of proof and say, well, you give me what you are asking for, because you understand as I do that we must have containment, therefore outer space is fake. Therefore, it's just as reasonable for me to demand that you tell me what the sky actually is, as you are demanding that of me.
You make the container argument.
No, it's a necessary antecedent consequent relationship based on natural law. I don't make that argument, it's a fact.
He's
Right,
citing
so I'm
natural
asking
law.
questions about your claim.
Not a claim.
He's citing-
Oh my God, are you
Oh my
dumb?
gosh.
Did you not hear me 5 seconds earlier? It's not a claim. It's proven fact. It's natural law, inviolable. Not something I need to go out of my way to prove. It's inviolable natural law.
Yeah, that's your claim, so why...
What my
Oh my
claim
God.
is inviolable natural law. That's not a claim. Do you know what inviolable means? That doesn't mean I suddenly need to go out of my way to prove an inviolable natural law. Applicable always. No, mate, it's applicable always. It's a natural law. A law of nature. Inviolable. Not some claim I'm making like a sky vacuum, for example. The only positive claim that's being made here is a sky vacuum. Entropy doesn't need proving. It's inviolable natural law. And based on that inviolable natural law, the gas we breathe would fill the space if it was a sky vacuum called outer space. A space for it to fill called outer space. Yeah, that space would have our gas that we're breathing vacate into that space instantaneously, and we wouldn't be breathing anymore. And that's the only positive claim that needs defence. You need to defend it, and in fact you've conceded. Yeah, I appreciate we need containment, it's a necessary antecedent.
That's why they asked you
That's not
what
what
a
I
natural
said.
law is. They asked you what natural law
No,
is.
I granted it for the sake,
It's the second law of thermodynamics.
nothing more.
So, Ed, you still believe that there's a vacuum?
There isn't. Can't be. It's a second law of thermodynamics violation. The sky is not a vacuum.
Yeah, it's not
Again,
even
he resists.
about what I
Ed,
believe. I'm just asking questions about your beliefs. And
I'm
you're just...
asking
Oh, right, I don't have any
very
beliefs.
poli-
Don't know what the sky is. Don't have any beliefs. Don't claim to know what it is or have any firmly held beliefs about what the sky is or isn't. Other than proving beyond all doubt that it's not what it's claimed to be. That would be a vacuum called outer space. That's what 95% of the Western world believe, and it does need defending. That is a positive claim. Not one I'm making, I might add. I don't make any claims about what the sky is. I've no idea. So I don't need to defend anything in this instance. However, there's millions, if not billions, being poured into exploration of a fake place called outer space in violation of inviolable natural law, the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy law.
Right, but you said it's a container. So...
Right, but
God.
yeah, right, but that bye-bye vacuum of the sky. Yeah, but right, but yeah. Bye-bye sky vacuum, bye-bye outer space. Not yeah, but I'm going to ask you a question about what the sky might be, or what containment might do when it's an absolutely required antecedent that I don't need to prove. But I've crapped all over the sky vacuum called outer space. That's far more critical in this discussion.
Ed, I know you want gentle voices at this point, so I'm going to offer it to you. Ed, please tell us what natural law means.
It's really irrelevant. I'm asking about your beliefs on a
It's not
show
a
about your
belief.
beliefs.
What's wrong with you? It's not a...
Yeah, what's wrong with him? Yeah, your beliefs are what I want to know about. Let's forget about natural law and the way of things in nature. Tell me about your musings and beliefs. I've got a belief the sky's a vacuum. Tell me your beliefs. We don't care about your stupid beliefs. We care about natural law, though, because it applies always in nature, and we are here working at the really is level, talking about the nature of reality. You, on the other hand, want to know about our bloody beliefs.
Ed, this is my last time I'm going to try with you. When your beliefs violate natural law, what's going on there?
Well, there are other laws.
There's other stuff we can talk about. Yeah, let's talk about something else.
The other laws that don't pertain to what we're talking about. That's what you want to talk about?
Are you
kidding?
Are you just considering one natural law?
Yeah, just the entropy law and how it craps all over the idea that the outer space sky vacuum's real, where they're spending all this money to send penises with rockets, yeah? No, there's no sky penises. There's no sky vacuum, outer space is fake, but yet they're pumping billions into sending stuff to explore there, even though it's not real. But meanwhile, let's talk about how containers work, or whether or not the natural law that is the second law of thermodynamics is just my belief. It isn't.
Well, let's talk about gas law. What's the V in gas law?
Volume.
Okay, what's the volume of the sky?
I asked, is natural law the only law you take into account in your system?
No, we just take into account entropy law when it comes to the sky vacuum. You see, on screen for the audience now is this huge black area, and according to the heliocentric spinning ball space monkey religion, this is a vacuum 10 to the minus 17 torr. And what do you know, we've got gas pressure right here not filling this space. Now, the second law of thermodynamics, the entropy law, speaks to how the gas would fill the space. The amount of available volume in gas law that Paul just asked you about would be V, volume. And in the case of the volume for this gas here to fill, it would be all of space. And gas, by its nature, wants to fill the available volume. PV equals nRT. Gas law also debunks outer space.
Right, so the container is the only law you're taking into account in your system then?
No, you just were given the gas law and you were given the second law of thermodynamics, entropy law, which is specifically speaking to how gas would fill the space. Outer space, the fake space, the space they're spending all the money on. That isn't real. It's like Narnia, just a fake place they made up. But yet they're spending money sending rockets there, even showing little children space penises going up to this fake place that doesn't exist, at the cost of billions. But what about the gradient?
Yeah, what about it? How can it exist in a container?
Okay, let me address that for a second, Nathan. Just real quickly. We did Good Times for All had a container with gas in it. He manipulated the temperature and created a differential pressure, did he not? And isn't temperature part of gas law?
Yeah, so did Hillbilly Blue Balls, the redneck retard. We've already told him this. He's just ignored it because he doesn't want to focus on the bit that debunks his religious fundamentalist zealot belief that the sky is a vacuum called outer space. Much better to talk about the consequent, the delta of this devastating point at nausea, or the precursor at nausea, because that's all he can do.
Well, all I know, and I'm not talking to him anymore because he's disingenuous, his beliefs are greater than natural laws, what I'm hearing.
Really? In what way then?
Oh, you're begging me to talk to you now? Will you answer my question if I come back in?
What, you want to know the definition of natural law? Is that it?
Oh, so you did understand it. You know, it's not fun to talk to someone when they don't answer a direct, precise question. And that's what I've asked you at least 3 times. So I'll give you one more chance when I said I wouldn't. Because you sound like you want to change your mind now. So yes, please, now that I know you understand my question, please answer what natural law is and can it be violated? Go.
Could it be violated? Well, I don't think so, because that would make it supernatural, but there are other laws that you're not taking into account.
Like
That's
what?
the whole problem.
Like what? What
like
other
you're talking
law
about the
violates natural law?
container
Hang on.
and you're talking about
Hang
entropy,
on. That a
but
container
you're
is
not
not a
taking
law.
other things into consideration.
Name one
Like
natural
what?
law that we're not taking
Like
into
what?
consideration.
Hang on, Neil. Name one law that fights natural law. Go.
That's not what I said. I said you didn't
said there
take
are
into
other
account
laws.
other.
You said there are other laws that
Right.
I should entertain, but it's not only natural law. Fine. So if natural law is a law, inviolable, then you're saying there's some
No,
other thing.
No. That's not what I said. I said you're
Okay.
talking about the container and entropy and stuff, but there are other things you have to take into account.
And I
in the
asked
system.
you, like what? Like what? Give me one.
You're,
He didn't say that. He said other laws.
gravity.
It's not a natural law.
Oh my
The hell is
God.
The law of
gravity?
gravitation's been debunked. So you don't have gas going down, go boom boom at 9.8 meters per second. It's going up to form this gradient. So that's been debunked. It's not a natural law. It's been superseded by Einsteinian bending of pseudo-Riemannian force space over 100 years ago. This is not a law. The laws of Newton were not right. Who was that said that? It was Feynman. Feynman said that. The laws of Newton were not right. It's not a law. It's not a law of nature.
Yeah, it was fine.
How does he define gravity? What is it? He says it's gravity. What is gravity?
Mass attracting mass. 100-year out of date.
Really, that
Well,
was
let him
the
define it.
correct system
let him
according to you.
So Ed, you just now fell into your own word trap. You know that, right? You want me to explain the snare you're in?
Please go ahead.
Oh, wonderful.
Why is gravity
Where's
not real?
Good. No,
Please
hang on. Let's set the stage. I asked you what natural law was and could it be violated.
Yeah, let's go
Excuse me,
ahead
I'm
and
talking.
explain why
I'm
gravity.
summarizing. I know it's hard. Now I'm going to sound like Nathan with the mute button here. Look, just listen and then you can answer. You want a polite conversation? I'll give you one. Where is gravity the strongest? At ground level or way up there where the gradient is? Where is your
gradient
gravity
is
if
everywhere.
it exists? Hang on. It's a precise question. Where is your gravity strongest at? At Earth's surface or higher up where the gradient is?
The gradient is everywhere.
He asked 3
question.
times. I'm sick of it. You've asked him 3 times. I've heard you ask him that question. He didn't ask where the gradient was. He's substituting a question with a different question, answering a question he hasn't been asked. He asked you about where gravity's the strongest 3 times. He said the gradient's everywhere. So is this your time over now, mate? Can't answer a direct question you've been asked 3 times.
You sound pretty disingenuous, bro.
Yeah,
I don't
it
even
does.
know why you're here, to be honest. Like, you sound like a zombified robot who's just asking questions just to ask questions. What the hell is it that you want to know? I don't understand.
Don't let him off the hook here.
He's
either can answer this or he needs to go.
No matter what's being said, he's saying the gradient, the gradient, the gradient. He wants to talk about the gradient. You're asking him a question, he's ignoring it, and then his answer's about the gradient. In other words, it's back to one-way street. Only his conversation and his format will be ever achieved here.
And I thought.
Yeah, then he needs to go.
It's not a force. It's been superseded, Neil. Hold on. Go say that again, Neil.
The gravity is less. As
now he wants to talk. Now someone else has been given the mic.
Shut up.
I've given the mic to someone else, Dick Brain. Go ahead. Do you want to repeat that, Neil?
Gravity is not a force.
Right. It's not pulling anything anywhere. It's not a force. Superseded. 100 years ago. We've gone over this. He's not acknowledged a word of it. You know, got people in the wings waiting to defend this nonsense. Got Rumpus waiting for his one attempt that he'll get today to say gravity and the universal force of gravity. He's going to claim that that is a natural law, which it isn't. You know, we'll give him the same rhetoric we give you, back at you, i.e. it's been superseded. It's 100 years out of date. Gravity's not a force. We'll rattle off a few quotes, but is that it? Are you not going to address this? It's merely talking about gradients or talking about 100-year out-of-date rhetoric that's been superseded. Is that it?
As you go up, the gravity gets less. But he said the gradient up there. All I'm saying, the gradient is everywhere.
Right, let's just debunk that. The gravity getting less. Number one, gravity is not a force. Do you want to just acknowledge that first of all? Acknowledge it or I'll kick you out.
That would answer Tiff Man's question.
Can I get a concession? Gravity is not a force. Can you concede this before we move on? Hello?
RP.
Black Swan is mine. Gravity's not a force. Can we get a concession? Third attempt.
It's an effect. What does it matter?
So it's not a force.
And even if it were,
for God's sake, Neil, hold on. Mate, just need a quick... Yes, I understand. Gravity's not a force. This isn't my rhetoric. I'm just getting you to parrot the correct pseudoscience from your side of this argument. I don't see why it would be so painful when I can quote George Musa, Dr. Brian Cox. Why is it that you won't concede this? I don't get it. Just say, yeah. Gravity's not a force. Just say it.
No, it's an effect.
So it's not a force then? Fifth attempt. Just say it. I know it's painful.
For the fourth time, no, it's an effect.
So how can an effect cause something?
Bingo.
What do you mean?
Like pulling gas particles, that would be a force, wouldn't it? Pulling or pushing, that's forces. If it's an effect, then it's not going to cause anything. It's the effect of something, as opposed to a cause of something. So how's it going to hold the gas if it's not a force?
The effect is that things have a weight.
Oh, really? The gas is going up, not down. Your weight's a vector downwards. Gas goes up. It's evaporating from ground level and getting less going up. You go on and on and on about bloody gradients, and then you forget that the reason it's up there in a lesser quantity is because it's produced at ground level, not going down, moron. What are you talking about? No force of down. The gas is going up. This debunks the universal law of gravitation, which is not a law that we need to consider, because A, it was superseded 100 years ago by Einsteinian bullshit, and B, it's not a force. It's not forcing gas to do anything. And what it would be forcing it to do, it's not doing either, because it's going up, not down at 9.8 meters per second. Up! Are we getting through to you? Are you hearing us on FM? Gravity, not a force. I know it was painful, and you just kept conceding that it's an effect, therefore isn't going to force gas to do anything ever. So we don't need to take into consideration any other laws of nature other than entropy then, mate. The gas would fill the space. Outer space is fake. Gravity was just merely a little sideline you took us down, a little merry dance of nothingness with non-forces that can't hold gas here. So space still fake then. Maybe the concession of concessions, the whole point of this argument, your religion of a sky vacuum called outer space. Or maybe there's another ham-handed segue to a 100-year out-of-date non-law that we don't need to worry about, called gravity. Because that ain't holding gas here, mate. Gravity's not holding it down. The gas is going up. Entropy's causing it to have a phase change and go from being weighed down in liquid to going up. In total defiance of this claim to be law of down, go boom, boom. No, mate. Definitely not a universal law of gravitation holding things down. Debunked, superseded, replaced by a not actual force of bending conceptual mediums, pseudo-Ramonian force space, Einsteinian nonsense, concepts, reified by morons into not actual forces that aren't holding gas here.
Right, so some gases...
Right, so sky not a vacuum. Right, the most pathetic concession ever. Right, your religion of a sky vacuum's fake. Right, we don't have outer space. Right, they're pumping millions of dollars of your tax money into a fake journey to a fake place with sky penises. Yeah, not just right, crucial to your heliocentric belief, mate.
You're just cutting me off. That's funny.
What, when you say right and then ask me a question? It's not just a, that's interesting. The Western world's religious viewpoint of a sky vacuum is debunked. Not, that's interesting. We're all being lied to. Or silence. Maybe move on to a new question for me after not saying a word. Maybe claim that after that short pause where you didn't acknowledge a word, maybe a question for me is in order. Or just a yeah, right, and then a question. Or a long pause and a question for me. Yeah, the religion of the Western world's wrong. No sky penises, no rockets going to a vacuum. That's all fake. Lies. Deceit. To convince you you're on a ball, which we're not. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. The sky is not a vacuum. Oh, by the way, we make no claims about what the sky is, in case you've got any questions about gradients that follow this up. But your fake religion's all being debunked while you listen to this.
You said gas go up. Some gases go up. Do you know why that is?
Well, not because of gravity. It's supposed to be going down. Why isn't it going down at 9.8 meters per second as per this universal law of gravitation? Why isn't it doing that when you've claimed gravity is a natural law we need to consider? Why isn't it that you've had some humility and admitted that this bullshit journey you've just took us on was completely pointless and wrong, and that we do not need to take this into consideration as you asserted? You're just a time waster with a moronic belief in a 100-year out-of-date rhetoric that's incorrect. Aren't you, moron? Why are you wasting our time? That's a question I want answering. Not a new question for me. Why are you asserting this nonsense that's not true? No, moron, not gravity. No, moron, no, this isn't a natural law we need to consider because you've got a stupid misapprehension about it. You are just thick. You hear me? I'm telling you off, moron.
But when I ask you how it works...
Oh, but when I've got a question for you, so you have no humility, asshole. Yeah, you aren't going to take a slightest slice of humble pie. No, you've taken us on a merry dance of gravity and told us we need to take this law into consideration as a rebuttal to entropy law, that we say is natural law, is inviolable, and apparently we don't need to worry about that, we need to worry about gravity, which was wrong. But what now, time for a question for me again? No humility. None. You're a scumbag.
when I ask you how...
Oh, yeah, when you ask me a question. So it is just back to when I ask you something. When I ask you about why you've taken us on a merry dance of gravity, you ask me a question. You're wrong. You're moronic. This isn't correct. It's not something we need to consider. I'm asking you why you've taken us on a merry dance. It's not time for a question for me.
If I don't need to consider that, then tell me how it works.
Oh, so no, it's time for me to tell you something, is it, asshole, with no humility? This isn't a time for a question for me. It's time for you to acknowledge that you've taken us on a merry dance of gravity in rebuttal to entropy law. That would be the second law of thermodynamics that debunks the sky vacuum. We don't need to take this law into consideration. Gravity is not a force. According to you, it's an effect. The latest nonsense of pseudo-Ramonian bending space-time. An effect that's not going to hold gas here. So we don't need to take your law into consideration. It's not a law. It was debunked over 100 years ago, superseded by new nonsense that also affirms religious beliefs in sky vacuums with bending space-time. All fake, all nonsense. A merry dance that doesn't debunk our assertion that debunks your religious belief in a sky vacuum. This is not a time for questions for me. It's a time for humility from you.
If you're gonna say that's not how it works, then show me how it works.
So it is going to be a question for me, or a demand that I show something. Of course, why would I think anything less? If you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you tuned in, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!